We are live. We are live. Hello, friends. Wednesday, January 30th. It is late in the afternoon. I was just meeting with my Australian colleagues. Also, I got this Follow Your Dreams poster on my book. Anyways, you know what? Coil bound is truly the best. I just love the fact that things lay flat. I don't know why else you would buy anything else. Okay, today I want to talk to you about something that's come up quite a bit, and it's not necessarily a scenario design question, but it has everything to do with how effectively to design your scenarios. It has to do with the software that you use to manage your projects. And I'm going to make this quick because I smell dinner. It's cooking. Ooh, my husband's cooking me some dinner, and it's going to be ready, I think, in like ETA 8 minutes. All right, so this gets asked a lot. I get this question. I've answered this question, but I think that when I answered this question, I really I needed to add a little bit more detail. So, which software program do you use to develop your e-learning scenarios, as in project manage the development, like for your team, right? And I've used a whole lot of stuff out there. I've used Trello, Slack, Basecamp, which I will talk about today. And also I have used a spreadsheet. Yes, this has been done. And it's funny because one of the things that we sometimes think about is, hey, what's the software that's going to help me solve my problem? Because we're not, communicating well, or all this other stuff. And so one of the things I always caution people with is software for project management is just like money. You know how they say, if you get all this money, then it's going to solve your problem. Or it's, when I get a lot of money, if I win the lotto, it's going to make me a charitable person, and I'm going to, give half of it away. Well, the thing is, all that money does is it amplifies the person you already are. So if you're the person who likes to be rude to people, you're just going to be now more rude to people because you think you have an excuse. If you're the kind of person who's super generous, guess what? When you're rich, you're still going to be super generous. You're just going to now have lots more to be shareful with. So when they say, when people tell me, oh, that software, project management software is going to help me have better communications with my team, I don't think so. What a project software management tool does is it amplifies to some extent already what's happening in your organization. So I'm not saying that it can't help streamline some things, but that will mean, and it always does, that you have to do some not only self-education about how to run effective teams using any kind of software, period, but also you'll have to do a lot of tending, a lot of gardening, and a lot of maintenance, and prompting and supporting and teaching, and all the encouragement and recognition and championing to make sure that the tool that you're using is used by everyone. Because if you're the only one using it, my goodness, what's the point? That there's huge expectations around, and they're clear, and they're vetted by the team. If the team has buy-in into what the software that you're using, it's because they've been a part of that process. Like, how do we use this the right way? How do we communicate with each other? Where do we keep our documents? How do we state to-dos? Because that's a really big deal. So one of the things I always suggest is have a meeting with your team about expectations. I have very effectively used a single Google document with columns and a table of like who's doing what is the task, when's it going to get done, is it done, what's the status of it. So that's worked, but that's because the entire team was like, okay, cool, this is what we're using, this is the single place we're going to use that for, and if I have any comments or questions, I have autonomy to add them. I have autonomy to add new tasks if I see them come up. I have autonomy to move things so that everybody knows, but everybody needs to know when I'm moving them, so everybody's on the same page. So one of the things you want to do is set expectations around those things, because the tool will only amplify what's already happening. And if you need to have, in some cases, a huge cultural change when you're trying to implement these changes, you're going to have to do some work. It's not the tool. It's not the tool, baby. It's all that communication and people management that's going to come into play. So one of the things I recommend is also, is that you invest some time in learning a really good project management methodology. My favorite, and I've done both the Waterfall Classic Project Management Institute original strategy, which was good because it was taught by a real practitioner. So I learned a lot about projects, a lot about team dynamics and all those other things because the man was actually a vet of teaching, of actually doing projects. And that's one of the things I suggest as well, is if you ever take a course in business, entrepreneurship, marketing, project management, the person actually needs to be a practitioner. Otherwise, I'm sorry, it's like it doesn't help. They can't contextualize, and everything they're talking about is from case studies they've read. They haven't actually lived it. So is in those practical business type things, you want somebody who's had to deal with a team, had to deal with missing the mark, had to deal with people resisting change, all those things, because then they'll be able to not only give you examples that are contextual, but also really be clear about the, know where the emphasis needs to be placed. So for me, after I learned Agile project management, you can actually there's a really great course that the PMI Institute offers. But what really helped me was that after you learn, the reason I'm choosing Agile and you want to hang out with a Scrum Master, see how those teams work, because what happens is you learn a different kind of mindset around what project management is, which really, if you really get down to the basics and almost the foundation of it all, is being a really good communicator and almost an over communicator, especially when you're an instructional designer. That's so important because we are, and I got this from one of my mentors, Carol, is that we really are the hub that keeps those teams going, because we are almost a liaison and a translator between different departments and different languages. So we're the translator between this me and so that's my dinner being cooked. Let's see. Hello? That's my dinner being cooked. I don't know if I want to now eat dinner. Oh my goodness. Still being, there's a fire downstairs. It's okay. I'm safe. I think I'm safe. Hope. This is the best live ever because it's actually really live. Thanks for your patience, everybody. God. All right. So yes. Okay. So one of the things that we do as instructional designers, we take stuff that's from the subject matter expert, translate that into usable information, and then liaise that with the guy or a gal who's developing the software. Then we liaise that with people we're trying to actually, let's say they're doing an illustration. So we have to communicate with those people. Also, we have to be able to communicate with technical writers. And so sponsors, style guides, photography, whatever, right? There's what you are is the hub. Communication is key. So if you're not well versed in that, I suggest you do take an Agile Scrum Master course. They're awesome. They're online. You can, and they're not that much of an investment. But as far as professional investment, just so you have this really awesome foundation is wonderful. And one of the other things that Agile project management does is it helps you develop, and you can then use this in your software. It helps you develop almost like these gamification strategies to keep your team on track, momentum, satisfied, and agile. But also when you are developing things using the traditional method of, it's called waterfall project management, what happens is you're trying to see way too far into the future. You invest yourself and your team into things that might not happen because you're totally guessing and BSing that you will know how things work out. So what's awesome is that in Agile, it teaches you to kind of keep things to 2-week sprints. They call it sprints. And you're basically sourcing your team to give you input on, hey guys, we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. We have this big outcome that's might be happening, that's what we're hoping will happen. But before that, what do you think is the next best thing? that we should do that would give us the momentum to make progress. And so that's what you really want to go for, is actually just try and find, leverage the people that you're working with, get consensus about how you're going to use that software, and also yourself have that really strong project management background, because that's going to take you to the next level when you're designing e-learning. Otherwise, everything else will just amplify. Like if there's madness at your company and you're trying to like add software on top of that without instilling and teaching people those good practices, it's just going to be crazy, and you're going to give up. And it's going to be one of those things where you're like, oh, we tried Trello, but it didn't work. So now we're going to something else. It is never about the software. They're all basically giant to-do lists with, communication, dinner's ready, with communication, with options on how to communicate. But one of the things that you really have to think about is that Scrum, as an agile process, as a project management process, the first Scrum masters worked without software. They actually used, they actually only used they used tape, from like masking tape on a wall, and stickies that would have the special task outlined, and then they would move them through stages. Everything was done on paper. So the fact that software is there, I mean, that's great, especially for teams that can't get together and have like a huddle for 15 minutes and, tell everybody what their progress is or where they're stuck. But if the sticky board can work for those guys, then software is like the icing, the cream. That's wonderful. But like I said, if you don't have a good framework, if you don't know what you're doing, and the team you don't have that buy-in, and you're not actively like basically, hey, you know how we said we're going to store all of our documents here? Let's do that. You know how you said, how we decided that we're not going to no more send any more emails. We're actually all going to talk only using this platform, and we're just going to use instant messaging. Let's do that. So you're constantly bringing people back because you're teaching them new habits, right? So yeah, so I hope you check that out. I think I have the link. I'm not endorsing like this particular place. It just happened to be available as far as like the Scrum Master, the Scrum 9-course piece, and it's actually pretty affordable. But like I said, if you are going to take a course, especially if you're doing it live, make sure it's with a practitioner and somebody who's actually been in the business for a while and actually doing those things, because it'll make a whole lot of difference to you. So I hope that was helpful, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks. Take care. Bye.